Hello, everybody. Today is August 7th, Thursday. It is about 7:30 Eastern Standard Time here in East Tennessee. So, got a lot going on in the world today. So, thought I'd make a video, second of the week. So, let's jump right in. All right. Some news headlines. All right. Oh, let's just lower that a bit. All right. So, Benny Johnson takes a screenshot from Fox News. What do we got? Insane U.S. tariff revenue hit a record $29.6 billion in July. They have brought in over $100 billion so far this year. The experts were wrong. Trump was right. Tariffs work. That's right. These tariffs work, right? I've argued that the tariffs had several key purposes. One, negotiations and trade deals, leverage. Two, to reindustrialize. And three, protect existing industries and to get basically to open markets. So if you have these tariffs coming in, now this is also good for deficits. I'd like to see the spending cuts to go along with it, the streamlining of agencies, the elimination of some departments, and these useless programs. Okay, also return some powers to the states to get the deficits down. But in the meantime, it's all about the deficits and our total debt. So this will help with that. So I like where we're going on this front. I like the tariff revenue coming in. And I've argued it's not a dollar for dollar. If there's a 10% tariff on this product, it's now going to be 10% more when you buy it here domestically. No, there are a lot of other factors that go into play. Shifting markets, raising prices in other markets where that same product is cheaper, even when you factor in price parity and the exchange rate. Also, with the tariffs, they can change suppliers in certain areas for certain parts, and also the company also eats some of the costs because they still want to be competitive. So it is not that whatever, but it's good to see that we are getting the revenues in here, and it is not, I repeat, not on the backs of U.S. citizens. So this is good news. So I thought I'd share that with you. Next piece of news. All right, so, oh my God, it's true. Democrat Massachusetts Governor Maura Healey is giving $30,000 to each illegal immigrant family to help them move into homes. Maura Healey is shifting shelter costs to the state's home-based program. The program provides rental assistance to migrant families, $30,000 in a 24-month period per family. Reported each family can get up to $4,000 per month in EBT cash, $500 per month for food, free health care, free cable. So this is very simple. The state of Massachusetts receives federal funds, okay, that support EBT, SNAP programs, health care, because Medicaid is a state and federal joint program, okay? Free cable. Even a socialist and communists don't think cable is a human right, okay? But yet they're going to get it. So that means the taxpayers of Tennessee and Florida and Georgia and Oklahoma are subsidizing this program. Because not only that, but indirectly. Because states receive money from the federal government for multiple things. Right? It's like the argument where, like, Planned Parenthood couldn't get money for abortions, okay? But they would get the $500 million, right? They just move the money around. It's still net. Who cares where the source of the income's coming in from? So they're receiving federal funds. The taxpayers of the United States, of other states, are subsidizing this program. These people are not entitled. How are illegals entitled to $30,000 for homes? Explain that to me. I don't get $30,000 as a U.S. citizen who's legally here. It's insane. This is criminal. This should be completely challenged immediately in the courts, and they should be even looking into criminal activity, because I see it as theft. You cannot just give away things without any kind of statutory things from Congress, because Congress holds the power of the purse. And in this case, they're going to be diverting federal funds to these programs. Okay? And it's immoral. It's destructive to the American family. Now, these people are going to be competing with third, fourth generation U.S. citizens whose grandparents fought in World War II. Okay? Who's factory left Western Massachusetts in Springfield is hanging on by a thread. But these people are going to get all this money and benefits. That is freaking bullshit. So that's my thought on that. And moving on. And Tennessee's helping. Tennessee National Guard has been deployed to help carry out President Trump's mass deportations. Just like it, as a proud Tennessean, I'm glad to see that. Why not? You know, they shouldn't play the interception role because they're not the actual rest role, because they're not trained on it. You don't want something wrong, whatever. But there are a lot of support functions that they can play in logistics, support, and then allow the ICE agents and actual enforcement officers to make those arrests and round up. And once they're round up, they can be, and once they're in custody, they can be then transported to where they're going, whatever facility. So I'm glad Tennessee is helping out on this. And unlike Massachusetts, which is using federal funds to give it away to people who have broken the law, in this case, Tennessee is using funds that are already spent to help remove people who are here illegally, strengthening the, increasing the safety of the U.S. citizen as well as the wages of the U.S. citizen by removing these people who hold down wages. Okay? So, let's get into a little politics here. Major breaking. President Trump immediately orders a new census to not count illegal aliens. Imagine that. This could have absolutely enormous implications. Florida, Texas missed out on a congressional seat in 2020. Blue states are overcounted. I've instructed our Department of Commerce to immediately begin work on a new and highly accurate census based on modern-day facts and figures, and importantly, using the results, whatever. So, scroll up here, and information gained from the presidential election of 2024. People who are in our country illegally will not be counted in the census. Thank you for the attention on this matter. So, that's true. The 2020 census, Oregon got a seat, California lost 1, Tennessee gained 1. Please. I was moving from upstate New York to Tennessee on my porch that summer, talking to a census guy, and he counted me and my 3 kids my 2 kids and wife, for 4 of us, in Tennessee. I meant in New York, not in Tennessee. How insane is that? I don't care what the cutoff date is. I'm here talking to you in the state of Tennessee, and you counted to New York? Okay? I don't have a problem because there are certain infrastructure funds and things like that that go to states and localities that are important for people here on green cards, some sort of visa, that are here legally, even if they're U.S. citizens. I don't have a problem with non-citizens. I have a problem with people here illegally being counted. They have no right to be counted. Okay? They're entitled to 911 services and you know, emergency medical services, as any human would be who would be a tourist or whatever. Okay? But they should not be counted in the census, because the census is about apportionment of seats and electoral votes for our representative democracy in our constitutional republic, to represent U.S. citizens in the U.S. House of Representatives and the Electoral College, not the Senate, because each state gets 2 senators. Okay, so you seriously can't count them. And now we're talking about gerrymandering now because of what Texas is doing and the rogue Democrats for the quorum. By the way, it was the Republican leadership that let them leave, by the way. Because they're all Bushites, moderates, definitely anti-Trump Republicans, and they work in cahoots with the Democrats, who share a lot of power and chairmanships in the U.S. House of Texas. But I also want to let you know that, you know, I always bring up Illinois, 14-3. Representative Harrison from the State House, Texas, was on War Room, and he was going through what states would have it. There's some states you just can't handle. Hey, he brought up New Mexico. I get it. It's only 3 seats. It's hard to get a Republican seat. 1 is always competitive. Like Massachusetts is 35% of the vote Republican, not 1 seat. There's no way to do that in Massachusetts. I'm telling you. There isn't. I mean, whatever. But that's hard. But you could gerrymander a seat in New Hampshire, which is a near 50-50 state, where you can get a Republican seat. And if you take New England as a region with millions and millions of Republicans, not 1 representative between Connecticut, Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Rhode Island. So that's insane. Illinois, 14-3. Trump lost by 8. You know, you got 2 ones pulled down, like, you know, out of southwest suburbs through whatever. They did anything they could to gerrymander Illinois. So when you hear retaliatory things, or if they gerrymander, well then, we'll retaliate if Texas does. They already did. Texas is just trying to catch up what the Dems did in these deep blue states. Okay, so that's the amazing thing about this. Okay, also we put in Chris Christie in charge of the redistricting in 2020. That didn't go well. He didn't know anything about the country, the people, whatever. Okay, we also can't include race anymore. That should be illegal to include race. There are ways to do it, and yes, you can favor them, whatever. But if one party's doing it, then you have the right to do it under that. And the Constitution says shall every 10 years do a census. Doesn't say you can't do it in the mid-year, especially when it was done wrong. So many people moved in 2020. I mean, how many Buffalo Bills stickers I see driving around here in Northeast Tennessee. Okay, even more so now than I did 5 years ago when I moved here. Okay, trust me, the populations in those areas dropped. Okay, they are way better. Tennessee clearly has more people than Massachusetts. And if you take away the illegals, then you're losing massive. See, what people also don't understand. There was a guy on TV today, Warren Plate, MSNBC guy, talking about. First of all, he's from Toronto. It's like whatever. North Carolina, how there's a state house is a supermajority, and it's for the Republicans, but it's a purple state. Okay, but here's the thing that you gotta understand: Democratic voters are concentrated. And if you believe in true representative democracy, then you believe that the person has got to represent. The district has to be certain homogenized. So what do? You pull 2 blocks of Charlotte, North Carolina, and then pull it out 100 miles out towards the South Carolina border with all these farms or whatever? No, you can't do that. There has to be some homogeneity among these districts, okay? To a certain extent, okay. You always want to get at least one. Like, let's try to get this smaller city in the district so it's not all split up. And I get all that, okay. But when you're completely concentrated, so what do you? That was one of the complaints about Wisconsin state legislature. Again, what do? Put a farm country through 300 miles away and combine it with like a 5-block radius of Milwaukee. Well, they're not representing the same kind of people. Okay, so that's it. Because the urban areas really have 2 types of people. Well, 3: illegal immigrants, highly credentialed left-wing white liberals, and they have a very dependent class on government and social services. That's your cities. That is the antithesis. That is the biggest divide. It's not red state, blue state. It's more urban, rural, and urban certain types of suburbs. Okay, depends upon the city and whatever. So there's not just one homogenized urban area, not one homogenized suburban area, and homogenized rural area. Okay, but getting the illegals out is absolutely out. It's like, you know what it is? It's almost like the 3/5 compromise. Okay, because the South, for seats, wanted to count slaves, but they didn't want to give them any rights. Here is the liberals, Democrats want to count the illegal immigrants, but they don't have the same rights as U.S. citizens. Okay, by the way, both Democrats doing on the wrong side of history again. So anyway, that was a key thing. I hope we fight on that and keep that going and do the right census and get a right, accurate count. All right, economics. This is going back to what I said about wages. Inflation-adjusted compensation rose nearly 1% in the first half of this year. That's it. Wages grow, inflation grows. It's 1% above that. This was the keynote thing of the first Trump administration. Why? Going after illegal immigration. Okay, that's 1. 2, try to repatriate jobs. 3, deregulation. And that's what Trump 2.0 is doing, and already we're getting 1% above that. Matter of fact, in the first Trump years, by the end of 2019, wages were going up much higher, and it was higher for blue collar and blue collar jobs, particularly blue collar supervisory jobs were up more so than white collars by a percentage point. So and they were up too. But just to say, that's what you want to do. You want to have a strong middle and working class to be a successful nation. All right. Speaking on deregulation and everything else, the Trump administration just launched a new push for nuclear energy. A USA company, yay, Tennessee, will now be producing commercial fuel for nuclear reactors. This is clean energy that's much better than wind farms. Will Democrats get behind it? Of course not. But this is a great idea. We need more nuclear energy. We also should need to supply, because we get a lot of uranium from Russia, find additional supplies or better relations with Russia. I'd rather the latter. But we should still have more of our own supply of uranium, among other rare earths, etc., if we have access to it. But we also should be going more nuclear, okay? I've always been an all of the above option. If you have it, use it. And yes, I do believe environmental controls. I don't want black smoke going up. If it makes it a little more expensive, it does. But when you factor in natural gas, you factor in certain types of oil and nuclear energy, you have a combination of clean. As a matter of fact, at the end of the first administration, emissions was lower than the rest of the country because all we did was shift. The global demand for energy keeps going up. So what we did is we shift production from the west to the east, who lack environmental standards. There you go. So I'm happy about that. Get the ball rolling on all fronts here, with the energy and everything. So let's see here. Here's another thing that Trump's coming out with. Loving it. Breaking. President Trump is now opening Americans' 401k accounts to holding cryptocurrency, real estate, and other alternatives. See, this is one of the things I hate about 401ks. I almost feel like it's a giveaway to the big financial companies. Why do I have a choice in my 401k of just equity and fixed income based asset classes? To inflate the assets. To me, it's one of the reasons why equities particularly trade much higher historically at PE numbers than, let's say, 30 years ago. Okay, it's because people have no choice but to put the money in these things. Why do I have to plan? Why can't I just get an IRA and my employer sends the match to where I want to have the funds and I can invest where I want to invest? All right, you give me my match. It goes into here's my account number, just like direct deposit. I don't even need a 401k. Just, here's my IRA. You give me $5,000. Okay, I defer $5,000. You match $5,000, and then I put the $10,000 whatever IRA I want. Why does it have to be this plan? And then the IRA rules apply. Because when you retire anyway, or when you leave a company, you roll it over to an IRA, and this way I can buy. I'm not beholden to the financial institutions because maybe I want to own gold. Maybe I want to own silver. Maybe I want to own real estate. What does it matter to the government what asset class I do if I'm just holding it? And it increases my freedom, and it doesn't empower these banks and inflate assets. Okay? So I like where this is going because that's a first step. Now this is interesting. Elise Stefanik tells Canadian leaders to keep the smoke down. If you don't know, like crazy, there has been massive fires in Canada that have been coming into the upstate New York and upper Midwest region and smoke, and they're not controlling. Matter of fact, Nova Scotia and some areas have banned hiking, camping, fishing, things like that. They don't want any people outdoors. Why don't you spend the money to control the things? Okay, they're going because of their left-wing green policies like California. They're screwed up here, and the American citizens have to pay for it. You know what? Screw Canada. It was founded by a bunch of loyalists and a bunch of French people who didn't want to join us, who went up there. The only reason why we were allies in the wars is because they were part of the British Empire. Yeah, they're next door and we trade, but we do not have the same histories, do not have the same values at all today. They are nothing more. It's a globalist, left-wing crap hole, except for Alberta and some other areas, okay? Let's keep trading, keep it nice, but there's no reason we have to have these great political relations. And let's protect our dairy products and other products from them. That's all. And you know what? If New York doesn't want to tap in the Marcellus Shale, let them pay expensive costs for the Canadian energy. I could care less what happens to New York. So, now, this is more Republican establishment crap, right? Speaker of the House and the Senate Majority Leader are convening pro forma sessions of Congress in temp chambers during the August recess solely to block President Trump from making recess appointments. Why isn't the meeting covering this? Because they're in favor. That's why they're covering it. This is from Thomas Massey. But that's true. They're technically in recess. No one's there, but they're keeping recess, right? Because they don't trust his judgments because they are not America First and MAGA. They're afraid these people are not going to want to go all in the Ukraine war, they're going to deport too many illegal immigrants and go against their corporate donors. That's who Thune and these people are. That's why Cornyn's going down. That's why Morris is going to replace McConnell with his open seat. And hopefully we take down Lindsey Graham. Okay, this leadership is not behind true MAGA 101. And why Trump continues to do this. It's like you got Dan's endorsing challenging Graham, Paul Dans, who I'm backing, and Lasivita, it was Trump's campaign manager, is now working with Graham to get it in. We gotta make Graham's poll numbers go so bad that Trump's gonna get embarrassed, so we can get him out of the race and then move it. Okay, but because Trump's still got swamp rats around him, like today, Marco Rubio, like no clue what Russia's demands, wants, and everything like that. Talking to Kudlow, okay, like no clue, like they haven't been consistent or whatever, you know, because Marco Rubio is part of the establishment. And when Trump floated out like Vance Rubio, I'm like, I don't want Rubio anywhere near it. Vance Gabbard, Vance RFK, something like that would be good. So moving on, a little foreign policy here. Here we go. The Houthis, our good friends, the Houthis, back out again. Houthis escalate shipping war. Yemeni military announces sanctions on 64 shipping companies for violating naval blockade on Israel. Warns they'll be targeted in any area near Yemen. And this is a video. I just did the screenshot because it was from a month ago. But yep, they're back at it again, and they identify the 64 companies connected to Israel, and they're going to start launching missiles again. So we're going to have a Houthi problem again. But you know what? They're not going to hit the U.S. ships. I believe that agreement is still going in. It's because we couldn't find the launchers, is what I understand. They're mobile. They shoot it and move it away. And all we were doing was just bombing stuff. So they're like, don't hit our ships and we'll stop bombing you. And I think that's still in place. But we'll see. Now, Lula wants BRICS leaders joint talk on response to Trump's tariffs. Tells Reuters he'll also chat separately with India and China. All right, this is in response to the secondary tariffs because they're buying Russia stuff and everything that Trump's doing. This is where I break ranks with the Trump administration. Don't use the tariffs for political purposes. Use it for economic purposes. Countries will understand that. They will. They'll be like, I get it. You know, like we've been ripping you off on trade for a long time. We get it. You want to rectify your people. They'll understand that. But when you start meddling in what a country can and can't, what India can and can't buy, we don't have the right to do that. So you're going to punish, tariff them. That's going to drive India better. And that's what's also India closer, not just beyond BRICS, but even possible military exercises and so just closer to that sphere. Okay? And this is what Lula's trying to do, get them all close, okay, and realize that it's Trump against them. And he's pissed because, again, he's using tariffs because of Bolsonaro. And I agree with that. Brazil isn't good. What I try to do is get Bolsonaro back in, use other means besides tariffs, okay, to do that, okay? I mean, I guess in that case you could use tariffs to an extent, but maybe on certain products or something because you feel like someone is being prosecuted that you've known and an ally with in the international community unfairly. And Lula is a schmuck. You know, he's a communist turd and you know, and Bolsonaro is much better for the people of Brazil. All right. So I don't want to push Brazil like India towards China. All right. I want to figure out another way. Okay. So Lula's clearly trying to basically internationalize it and make it's us versus them. And I don't want the us to be China, Russia, India, Brazil, and whoever else. Again, it's just us, especially the Europeans who are useless on most fronts as well. So, but it's clearly what Lula's trying to do. He's trying to make it like a group situation. All right. Separate the tariffs from geopolitics. All right. So, Kremlin aide Yuri Ushakov tells reporters there was an offer from the American side which the Russian side deems acceptable. Will you look at that? Okay. And Semaphore, exclusive. More Ukrainians want negotiated deal with Russia. Poll finds. Ukrainians no longer want to fight to the bitter end and advocate for a settlement through negotiations. Almost 7 out of 10 Ukrainians currently say they want to resolve the war with Russia through negotiations, according to the survey results. Only 24% of respondents supporting continuing the war until victory compared to whatever. So, I bet you that 24 was concentrated in the far west of Ukraine, right? Where the old Galicians are, around Lviv, etc. Okay? But that Russian said, man, and what's happening? Russia's Putin and Trump announced they're going to meet. Don't know when exactly. Putin is was in the UAE today, meeting with them. UAE had offered to hold the meeting and so forth. This is a turnaround from the sub thing and everything going on. I don't know what's going on. I mean, Trump's like this issue with Trump. It's like, you know, even his numbers the other day is like 20,000 people, Russians were killed and 9,000 like last month. No, first of all, flip it and then inflate it. Okay, an ex-Ukrainian soldier. Her name is Belinda. Oh God, what was her? Malinsky or something to that effect. Okay, all right. She is an official in the Ukrainian government. She was starting. I fear Kiev can fall in like 4 to 5 months. Kiev, and she says we're losing 1,500 a day. This is a Ukrainian government official who was an active veteran on the front line. Okay, which mirrors actually Russia's numbers and other sources like McGregor and Larry Johnson, etc. Okay, and other people. I did an whole episode on that national security professor from Maryland and was do it. I mean, there are ways to find out these numbers, but Trump is clearly just being told this number. Okay, and it's part of the narrative because if people knew the true numbers, we would want this war to stop. You're sacrificing 1.5 million Ukrainians versus 200 to 300,000 Russians. And many of those Russians in the numbers are from the DPR and LPR militias before they were integrated into the Russian army at the start of the SMO. Okay, so I don't know. And she said out of that 1,500 a day, it was like 500 desertions, because I mean lots of desertions are occurring. There's also one transcript going around of a Russian commander talking to a Ukrainian commander, and he's like, I have all these wounded. I don't know. They're not going to get the medical treatment. I can't medevac them back. They're going to not get treatment at the hospital. And he said, well, we'll take you. We'll give you more. And this Ukrainian commander said, I know you're going to give them good medical care. So they surrendered. The Russians medevaced them. Okay, then, you know, months down the road, they'll get traded and so forth. And that's how we know, because of the exchange, the body exchanges, like 900 to 50. Well, that's your, it's always like some number like that. Well, there's your ratio. And considering how the Russians do their war. Okay, so, you know, the military-industrial complex, the foreign policy establishment doesn't want these numbers out. Remember, van der Leyen accidentally let it slip, and that was like almost 2 years ago, where she said 500,000. She let it slip. They actually had to edit the video and then repost it on X. Okay, so, and that was a year and a half ago, probably up to 1.5 now. Okay, that's why Zelensky signed the order that you can enlist at 60. Now, they're not going to be frontline soldiers, but they're going to replace people so that someone in 45 can go to the front line who's now doing some support role in the back, and now will be replaced by this 60-year-old. What are we doing? All right, Russia's demands have always been the same, and that's it. So hopefully he's getting people like Gabbard and others are getting his ear, because I feel like the ISW with Keane and Rubio, they're just giving him this advice and telling him this and whispered in his ears and all that stuff. So I really hope this is it. That Russia, America, and Trump says this is it. Russia gives in a little bit more, and we accept the terms and tell Zelensky, if you don't accept this, we're pulling the plug. And then hopefully they cave, and then we can, you know, come to a ceasefire, sign the deal, couple months to implement it, and then you know, get to a normalized relations with Russia and get them away from China. Okay, and then we don't have to worry about these secondary tariffs on things like India that will have serious negative consequences to the United States and the West. So I hope this works out. Now, a little Ukraine update as well on the battlefield. You see this? It was a video. I just did a screenshot of one of the things. These are anti-drone nettings the Ukrainians are doing to try to protect their supply routes. Because Ukrainians in several areas are trying to build new defenses while holding on to some of the lines they're holding now. And Russia is hitting those defenses. And they're concentrating heavily on supply routes to these areas like Konstantinivka, Pokrovsk, Kupiansk, okay, areas in Kherson as well. So this is one of the things. But they're being hit by FPVs as well. So I thought I'd show that to you. All right, so this is in Dnipropetrovsk. So if you know, on the left here, Dnipropetrovsk is basically the oblast north of Zaporozhye and northwest of Donetsk. It is not one of the original four, but Russia has already entered it. It entered it like a month ago, and they're pushing in several key areas as they surround Pokrovsk and the rest of southern Donetsk. The Russian army continues to break through into the Dnipropetrovsk region. The situation on the Komarsk direction for the armed forces of Ukraine is not looking good. Russian troops have cleared the Voskresenska area and are advancing further. After securing Melivka, the Russian armed forces are expanding their control zone in the Dnipropetrovsk region. To the right, this is Kupiansk up in the Kharkov region. Okay, Kupiansk is a major city. It's not as big as Kharkov, obviously, but it's a key city in that region. Russia's driving towards it. They've taken a key intersection, a supply-way route just outside of Kupiansk. And that's basically driving. So they're driving in that region in northern Kharkiv as well now. Actually, I believe it's southern Kharkiv region because it goes kind of northwest, southeast. So it depends how you look at it, the map. Now, this is Sumy region in the red. Okay, but basically here is that an interview by a Ukrainian general, I think it was a general, basically said that with the way the Russians are starting to move, they fear that Sumy could be completely surrounded in a little bit, and they're preparing for that as well. So this is now in the Sumy region, in the city of Sumy. And Russia's, you see the territory they've already gained in the north, the red, but they're pushing all along the fronts as well. And they have a little territory in the east part there as well. So you're looking at Kupiansk getting surrounded, Sumy close to being moved. Moving into Dnipropetrovsk, there's been operations in western Kherson, pushing in Zaporozhye. They're completely surrounding Petrovsk and cutting off the southern Donetsk. Konstantinovka, after taking Chasiv Yar, they're putting that in the cauldron as well. And Ukraine's just running out of manpower. All right, this is the time, Ukraine needs to just take a deal right now to save face, okay? And that's it. If not, Russia, I feel like this is the last chance. Otherwise, they're going to the Dnieper to make a decision on Kiev and Odessa, maybe even go further. What's the all of Novorossiya? But who knows? But trust me, this is the way that Ukraine, this is their last chance to save face and have something left, because this is the best deal they're going to get. Every deal always gets worse because of the amount of territory Russia keeps taking. In June 14th, it was only 4 territories, no NATO. Okay, that was June 14th of last year's deal. Now it's going to be more than that. So there you go. So anyway, that's my end of the week brief. I'll be following what's going on this the redistricting fight in these states, keeping up with that. We want Missouri. We can do it in, we can gain seats in Florida. Okay, we could even do it in Nebraska. We'll keep an eye on the census if that goes through. The illegal immigration fight. I heard that the Trump administration this evening had asked the SCOTUS to step in and allow some types of legal immigrants being deported in the LA area that apparently there's some sort of injunction on. Also, we'll be keeping an eye on the election situation. My state, we're going to have a primary here for governor and stuff. South Carolina with Dan's versus Graham. We want the others out so that the anti-Graham vote is not split. So on the political front, I'll keep an eye on what's going on with the Houthis, everything. Also, McGregor, this whole taking over Gaza thing, what a mess it's going to be down there. And also Douglas McGregor, right before I hopped on, tweeted out that they're ordering evacuations of Gaza. I don't know what that means. Out of Gaza, to where? To corner them in one area? I don't know. We'll see how that goes, whatever. Also, Trump apparently is hosting the Azeri Azerbaijan leader and the Armenian leader. Because if you don't know, I've mentioned this conflict in some of my videos. They're always going at it. Azerbaijan is also close to Israel. They are Azeri Turks, close to Turkey as well. Israel launched operations there, but they fought over Nagorno-Karabakh, an area of Armenians. They were kicked out. Azerbaijan took it. Armenia is also a traditional Russian ally because they're Orthodox Christian, and Russia has always tried to help them out in the past. So that area has been a mess. There was a war that ended in 2020. It was brokered, and Russia came in as peacekeepers. So Trump's trying to come in. They're having heavy conflict now. Azerbaijan's having an issue with Russia still, between journalists captured and all this junk. You know how it goes. So we'll do that. So I'll be keeping up on all the fronts. Anything major happens, I'll pop on, make a quick video, but I'll be reposting to my X, which is at Patriot Planner 1, and my getter is at Patriot Planner. And if you like this video, please like, follow, and share. All right, thanks a lot, and have a great weekend.